right, good morning. Welcome back to Rants, Rambles, and Reflections with Andrew. I'm glad you're here for the ride with me this morning as we ride along and enjoy this beautiful morning. I thought this morning would be a nice time just to reflect back on some important relationships that I had in my life over the years. The relationship that I want to share with you is the relationship between me, myself, and my father, my dad. Now, the reason why I want to share just briefly a little bit about this relationship is because more often than not, with a man, some of the things that he does face going through life is a reflection of the relationship that he has or did have with his father. The relationship that is ongoing, or the relationship that is maybe severed, not so good, estranged. If it's a good relationship or a bad relationship, that does reflect on the man and his life. Now, it's the same with a woman. The relationship that she have with her mother reflects in her life. Now that's more often than not. If you think I'm wrong, that's okay. But when you really analyze it, it stands out as truth. The son with the father, and the mother with the daughter with the mother. Now, for me, I was 52 years old when news came to me that my father was on his deathbed. At that time, I was very sick myself, and I was home on a couch. I was on my, how you would say, on my deathbed. And I was just waiting to die. My life wasn't going well. My health wasn't well. I was not mentally right. As far as I was depressed. I was not walking with God. I was living a sinful lifestyle. Everything I had tried to do in life had come to fall apart. And I was at a very dark place. Physically, I was dying. Spiritually, I was dead. And in my soul, in my mind, my will, my emotions, I had given up. 52 years old. And I really didn't care if I go on or not. I mentioned in another video that during that time, I spent 12 months in the house, on the property, and I had went outside of the house 3 times. Only 3 times did I exit the front door, and those times I never left the property. I stayed on the property, walked around the house. Once I got on my lawnmower and I cut a bunch of grass and things, but each time I fell down. When I was on that mower, I fell off of the mower. I was a danger to myself, and I had made it back inside and stayed on the couch. So before I get to rambling again, let me go back to my father. Now, the relationship that I had with my father was affected since I was a little boy. Yes, I saw him a few times, over the period of years, less than 10 times was I in contact with my father. Now that was a reflection of the trauma that I had inside of me, a reflection of the blame that I put on my father, a reflection of a lot of things. But it was a bad relationship. I didn't hate my father, but I didn't want to be like my father. I didn't want to be my father. I didn't want to be around him and give him influence in my life. I stayed away from him. I didn't want to be around him. And at times, I felt I needed a blessing from him. I needed something. I didn't understand it. I couldn't put it into words. But I thought about it. But all of that said and done, I did not have a relationship with him. I felt disrespected by him. I felt all kinds of things. And therefore, I could not open up myself to trust that man. I could not open up myself to move past the hurt that was inside of me. With all of that said now, there was no relationship. There was a yes, he's my father. I never spoke about him. People that knew me didn't bring up my dad. I didn't speak about my dad. I knew people for 30 years, they didn't even know I had a dad. You know, that type of a relationship. When I was sick and at my lowest point in time, another family member came to my house where I was on that couch, where I was on my deathbed, waiting to die, and they said, Dad is dying. He's in the hospital and he's holding on. He keeps asking for you. So they gave me some assistance and took me to the hospital where my father was not doing too well. At that time, he was in the Lebanon Valley Veterans Hospital in Pennsylvania, up near Hershey, Pennsylvania. So they took me there and assisted me inside to the hospital and up to see my father. When I saw him in bed, I was as bad as he was. But I saw my dad, and my dad wanted to talk with me, so everybody else left us there for quite some time, and we had us a conversation. My father told me all kinds of things that happened to him when he was a child. He told me about things that had happened in my life. My father told me, he says, son, you're not ready to meet God. And I wasn't. I was trying to hide, even from my father, my real emotions. And I'm sorry that those emotions are coming up right now. But I was still hiding things from him because I was a grown man. He didn't need to know everything about me and my life. But as he continued to talk, some of those hard feelings inside of me began to come down. Because my dad asked me, he said, can you forgive me? And I sense inside of my heart that for the first time in my life, my father was being honest with me. He was asking me for forgiveness.
At the light, turn right onto Apple Grove Street Northwest.
And I knew he was being honest, that he was sorry. He had owned up to things that had taken place. So I forgive my father. I said, I forgive you.
Continue on Apple Grove
And I
Street
felt
Northwest.
something inside of me shift, you know. I felt something change. That was a real feeling. Don't ignore your feelings. But I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand what was happening. but my heart had softened towards my father. But it wasn't just that. Something in the atmosphere had shifted. Something that is unseen in the spiritual realm had shifted, had broken down. I don't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. But something that I felt and something that was in the unseen took place. I forgave my father. He meant it and I meant it. And then something happened inside of me. I felt I was the one carrying all the pain, but I felt a need to ask my father for forgiveness. And I said, Dad, will you forgive me? Now the reason why I asked him to forgive me is he was my father. He hadn't done anything to deserve the disrespect that I gave to him all of those years. Anything he did wrong would have been between him and God, not between me and my father. Because see, I had bypassed God to judge my father in that way. And it was not my place as his son to be judging him. I didn't understand that. I only understood my own feelings. And I'm still trying to learn. I'm still learning how all of these things work. But I understand more today than I did then. I understand more now than I did 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 20 years ago and so forth and so forth. So with this in mind, I forgave my father, and then he in turn forgave me. And again, I felt something shift. Now, I went home from that the other family member took me back to my house. And a short time later, I received word that my father passed away. So I never saw him in this life again after that. But I know that from that time on, from the time that I saw him, that my heart as a person began to change. That is, my inside parts began to change. My thoughts, my way of thinking began to soften. The way I looked at God, the way I felt about life, all of these things began to break down and to change. It took about 4 months. That was in the end of October 2019 and in February 2020. Some major things that happened inside of me that caused me to want to rise up out of my bed. Even though I was sick, I was now reading my Bible and I was now praying and asking God for forgiveness. And I asked God for forgiveness, but nothing happened that I could sense. But there were some thoughts that came into me about the life I was living. And I realized that in order to be right with God, I needed to be right with myself. And here's the thing. You cannot honor God. You cannot please God. You cannot look into God's eyes per se. I know some going to say you can't see God's eyes. But you cannot look towards God and expect His favor when you don't move towards God. If you're living in sin and you want to hold on to that and justify it and make excuses for it, don't expect God's blessing. Don't expect anything from God. But even during those times, God was blessing me because He was beginning to open up my life. He was beginning to open up my heart. He was beginning to soften this hard shell. He had begun to allow truth to wash over me.
Onto Ohio 43 North, Market Avenue North.
With all of that, I became a person that realized that God was speaking to me and I was being blessed by Him. And what I did
At the light,
was I came into agreement with God and out of agreement with the false things that was in my heart. I still didn't understand it. I still didn't know what was happening. I still couldn't put it into words. But I knew I wanted to be with God. I knew I wanted His favor. And I knew I didn't deserve it. I knew that. I knew I didn't deserve it. I felt I shouldn't even ask for it. But if there was any possibility, I wanted to be in favor with God. I know when my father died, I was in favor with Him, and everything began to change within me. And I just wondered, could it be so with God? That lifestyle I was living had to change. I had to get up off of that bed, if at all possible, and come out of that lifestyle. I could not continue living with a woman that was not my wife, and somebody I did not love and who did not love me, even though the words were there, even though it was a relationship of convenience, even though a lot of different things, it was ungodly. And friends, that's what you have to do in your life. When you have ungodly things in your life, you have to say, this is ungodly, it's wrong. I don't know how to change, but with God's help, I'm going to try. I'm going to get up. I'm going to put my foot in front of my other foot, and I'm going to walk towards God. That's what you have to do, no matter what it is you're dealing with. To be right with God, to be honest, means coming to a place where you're going to trust God even then, and you're going to get up and stop making excuses and move in that direction towards God. That's what I had to do. And I prayed a simple prayer. I said, God, if you would send help my way, I can't get up and go find help. All my friends have deserted me. They didn't, you know, but that's how I felt. And I had cut them off. I said, God, if you send somebody that can help me or will help me, I will get up and I will come out of this place. And I will serve you. I will walk with you. I want it to be me and you. And you know what? God met me, you know. He sent somebody to my door. He come down and met me right where I was.
Turn right onto State Street Northeast.
And He helped me come out of that place, and He put my feet on solid ground. Soon after that, I began to physically understand, and I began to mentally realize that I was under a curse. I was living under the influence of demonic activity, and God set me free from that. And then God lifted those curses. They were driven out. The chains of generational curses were broke off of me. And when that happened,
Your destination will be
my physical healing took place. Now, folks, I'm getting to where I have to be this morning, so I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to pick up right here in either the next video or an upcoming video real soon. So God bless you, and let me leave you with this. that if you put God in your life and you take a step towards Him, He'll come to you. He will not let you
Your
go.
destination is on the left.
You will not be alone. God loves you. He desires to give you the best. And no matter how bad it is in your life, no matter where you are, no matter how many years it has been, He will set you free. He will help you. He's not standing over you to hit you over the head and fight with you. God loves you and He wants to pour His grace and peace and mercy out on you. He wants to bless you. He wants to shower down His blessings on you. Take a step towards Him now. Step towards God. Trust Him a little bit and you will see that He's waiting to receive you. He's waiting to love you. God loves you. We love you. Have an awesome day. God bless. Bye-bye.